Hi, y'all. I'm Jo, your host and cannabis lifestyle guide, and I'm excited to be rolling with Amanda Reiman today. Amanda is quite the accomplished woman in the California cannabis industry, and actually, you just keep racking up the accolades. But the thing I'm most excited about that you're working on these days is all about advocating for the home grow with your new brand, Personal Plants.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to roll some joints. I've got all my stuff. So I have been in cannabis for a long time, 20 years. And I realize now that there's like kids who are adults who are younger than the amount of time I've been in cannabis, which makes me feel old. But my journey in cannabis started as a patient. I've been using medical cannabis for about 25 years for arthritis and degenerative disc disease. And I probably would not be able to do most of the things I can do today physically if it had not been for cannabis. So I truly believe in it as a medicine. And then I became a public health researcher because I wanted to study it as a plant. And I wanted to study how cannabis interacts with society and how people interact with the plant and what that whole interaction does to policy and how it shifts and changes throughout time, which has been fascinating to watch with cannabis. Now, through all of this, I've also been a home cultivator. Very early on in Chicago in the 90s, when it was super illegal, we had no internet. I was growing cannabis in my apartment very haphazardly. Because under prohibition, it was very difficult to get and you didn't know what you were getting. And it was a whole day-long process to obtain it. So I wanted to grow my own. And ever since then, I have been completely in love with growing my own cannabis. It's something I've continued to do everywhere that I've lived. And no matter what kind of amazing cannabis I have access to at a dispensary, and I do have amazing access because I live in Northern California, in the Emerald Triangle, to be specific. I find that the cannabis I grow myself, even though it's probably not going to win any Emerald Cup awards, is like the best cannabis that I consume all year because I have grown that plant and that plant and I are in it together and we've been exchanging energy. I've been watching it and nurturing it, and then I get to consume it. And that is such a beautiful thing. So I founded Personal Plants because I realized there were a lot of people, especially women, who felt very excluded from the home grow community. Under prohibition, a lot of the people who were out front about their cultivation were men. There's all kinds of reasons for that we could go into on another show. But a lot of women felt like they weren't taken seriously in the home grow space. And also, a lot of people are new to cannabis and they're looking to develop a relationship with the cannabis plant. And they don't want to just be mindless consumers of it. So I looked at the Food Network and what it did for making home cooking more accessible to the average person. And I thought, what if we took that model and applied it to plant medicine, not just cannabis, but all plant medicines, and gave people an accessible, easy approach to having that relationship with the plants, getting involved with that sense of wellness, and really exploring plant medicine. So that's what Personal Plants is. You can find recipes and how-tos, interviews with inspirational women from plant medicine spaces, and a market where you can buy like the Ardent Infuser, you can buy mushroom grow kits, cannabis grow kits, bulk CBD flour that you can use to make oils and other things. So basically like the Home Depot for home grow.
I love that.
And I'm really excited about it because so many people are saying, I don't really feel comfortable going into a grow shop, but I absolutely feel comfortable accessing the content on your site. And so which people should check it out. It's at mypersonalplants.com.
Outstanding. Well, I'm assuming you've got some homegrown flour that you'll be rolling with
I
us
wish I
today.
did, but it's not ready. And
Oh, okay.
it's dried. Well, I have some still drying. Others has dried. It's been trimmed, but it's curing. And I trying really hard not to touch it until it gets a little bit of more of a cure on it. I thought about breaking it up for today, but I was like, oh, it's just not quite ready yet. But I do have something that's fantastic. And it's from a small local farmer here in Mendocino County, and that is Pink Boost Goddess by the amazing Katie Jean at Emerald Spirit Botanicals. And one of the amazing things about Pink Boost Goddess is that it is high in THCV. So it is 6.7% THCV and 15% THC. And for folks out there that don't know, THCV, they call it the diet cannabinoid because it's the anti-munchie. It actually
Yeah, I call it
suppresses
skinny weed.
skinny weed. Yeah, it suppresses your appetite, right? And I will just confess that I am almost done with a 2-week liver cleanse and detox. So I've been eating a vegan, gluten-free, alkaline diet for the past
Mhm.
2 weeks. Great. I feel amazing. But I did not want to get munchies from my weed because there was no potato chips, there was no chocolate, there was no, usual foods that I would go to for my munchie pleasure. So Pink Boost Goddess has been perfect because I'm able to still get the medicinal benefits from the THC, but I'm not getting the munchies at all. So if
That's
you're
awesome.
out there and you're saying, I really don't want to get those munchies as often as I do, try to find a product with THCV. It's amazing.
Well, in honor of, home grows, I have some from the family that lives here on the farm that I just moved to, and this is their Pineapple Express. It's farm cut. So, yeah, I'm going to be, smoking that today. They just handed me some purple kush, but it's like at the end of the curing process, doing it just a little more burping. And so I look forward to try that one out too.
Oh,
But
that's great. Yeah, I love farm cut. I believe that weed is being over trimmed these days. There are a lot of amazing cannabinoids and terpenes in that sugar leaf that's right there up
yes,
against the bud. And I could make all kinds of analogies here, but let's just say that sometimes less shaving and trimming is better than more.
yes,
Just going to say that.
this is a
Um,
true story. And I mean, when you see the leaves and you see all the little crystally, shimmery happening. I mean, it's medicine. Don't
Don't
throw that
throw
in
it
the
away.
trash. What are you doing?
No, 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 no. You want that. That's good stuff. And even if you decide to trim that off, if you're a home grower, you can keep that, use it, make it into oils and tinctures and all of your stuff because that's really valuable material. One of the other great things about home grow is that you get to have the whole plant. So the fan leaves are really great for making green juices. And they've got a lot of nutrition in them, anti-inflammatory qualities from the THCA. You've got the buds, you've got the sugar leaf, you've got the stalks, which can be composted and used in your soil the next year. So, instead of going and buying a jar, that all the processes that go through that, you really get to use the whole plant. And that's really nice.
Today, I was reading a white paper about the benefits of the root of cannabis, and it's something that gets tossed out so much, but um, that done some studies, and it's great for inflammation, for gout, and things like that. So just like people making their ayahuasca teas and whatnot in the Amazon, like here, just even experimenting with, using literally the whole plant.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There's no part of the cannabis plant that cannot be prepared. The stalks would be a little hard to digest. They're very fibrous, but I could definitely see using the roots to make, a preparation for sure. All right, I'm trying to decide which of these OCB papers I should use. Which ones are your favorite?
Well, because I'm a newbie, I find the texture of the bamboo and the hemp papers specifically the bamboo. The texture of it was easier for me to roll. Most of the heavy hitters and OGs that I meet, they use the OCB premiums, but I'm just not cool enough for those yet.
Well, I'm going to do the bamboo then. I have to say, I love that OCB has the cones because let me tell you, if you have to roll a whole bunch of joints, like you're having a party or something, or you just really don't want to sit and roll a joint, cones are great, man. Just pick it up, stuff the weed in there, twist it off, you're ready to go. I love that cones are a thing because I feel like they didn't used to. Did you ever use Randy's papers? Do you remember those?
No.
They had a wire in them. And so as you smoked it, the wire would appear. And then at the end, when it was the roach, you'd hold it by the wire. And you could literally smoke that thing until it completely disintegrated. And there was nothing but a wire. It was crazy.
I do remember those. I didn't remember the name of them, but yes.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't even know if they're around anymore. All right. Oh, these are good. These are really good. You're right about the texture.
Yeah, right. Okay. Did you already just roll a whole joint and didn't tell me what you did?
So was I supposed to tell you what I did? So I usually do not use a crutch. I forgot to bring a tool to tap. So I'm going to be doing it old school and using a pen. So I tend to be pretty fast and easy with my joints. I usually don't put a crutch in it. That's totally cool. And I've done that before, but I just kind of fill it. So there's a little bit at the left at the top, a little bit left at the bottom. And then I pinch one end. And then I take the other end, tap it down, and then I do the shake method. Then I twist that side. And then I'm done.
I mean, you might as well roll multiple joints.
Oh, I'm going to keep going. I've got a lot of different papers to try here. Now, the cones, like we were saying, these are great. I'm not going to use this because I'm going to roll, but it's already done for you. I mean, come on.
Now, the thing about the cones, because I don't like getting my hands all sticky. I've got a skin allergy to cannabis, and when I touch my skin, I break out. And so I love having a grinder that has a funnel on it so that you can like pour.
Wait a second. I've never seen a grinder with a funnel on it. What do you have over there? Oh my goodness. Where did you get that? I've never seen that before.
Good question. I bought it and then I can't find them online anywhere.
All right. If anybody watches this and knows where to get a grinder with a funnel, please tell us. Please tell me.
I look all the time. In fact, and I just dropped this. I look all the time, and I've even reached out to some of the who's the Session Goods, the people who make those really stylish classic bongs and pipes, and ask them to please make me a grinder like that.
I can't, and I've really never seen it. So, there's this group Artsy Leaf that's kind of like an Etsy for cannabis, accessories, right? Okay. So like things that people can make and then sell in a marketplace. And they're doing a winter market with women empowered in cannabis online. Personal Plants is going to have our hemp and arnica bath salt kit and our herbal elixir drink kit for sale in the market. But if anyone out there knows how to make these grinders or knows where these grinders are, sell them in the market and then we can buy them.
I mean, they're really efficient. I do wish that the funnel was a little bit more narrowed so that you could use it for cones.
It'd be great if you could like adjust the funnel size and then you could use it for like a bowl or anything. Because, the more you touch your weed, the more you disrupt the trichomes anyway. So really you want to handle, and that's another reason why home grow, we're going to go back to home grow. Yeah. Another reason why your home grow is so good is because even if your cannabis at the dispensary, didn't have to travel very far, even if it was, touched only with gloves and, all through the process, it's still been handled quite a bit because it's harvested and then dried and then cured and then trimmed and then packaged and then, put on a truck and it bounces up and down and then it goes to the dispensary. So it's been handled quite a bit. So when you grow it yourself, I mean, that is untouched. And that really does make a difference in the flavor and in the potency when those trichome heads have not been disturbed at all and are intact. So that's another reason why you should grow your own.
Yes. Well, and another reason why to farm cut it, because those bigger leaves protect those trichomes as well.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So
All
I think
right.
I'm going to try the premium. Oh, look, did you do
Well,
one?
I did. I finally got one
There you
rolled.
go. Well, now I just got to try the premium because you said it's what all the boys use.
Yes. Okay. Do you mind if I light this one while you roll that? It's going to be
Go
so
for it.
fast for you.
Go
Okay.
for it. How's it burning?
It's so funny. It doesn't matter how shitty my joints are. They always burn clean and even. That's one thing I appreciate about good papers.
Oh, absolutely. And that's another thing about rolling your own joints versus buying pre-rolls in the dispensary is that I find that when I roll my own joints, they burn a lot better than the joints that I buy.
My sound engineer, when he was here last, he said, "I don't know what it is, but the flower that I smoke with you at your place is always so much smoother than the stuff that I buy at the dispensary in the city." I'm like, "That's because I get it straight from the farm."
Right. And I obviously I'm a huge advocate for home grow, and I talk about that. So here's my little premium, the crutch.
Beautiful. Now, how
Okay.
did you find that rolled compared to the other?
Well, I put a crutch in it, so it was rolled just a little bit differently. But they're both great. I mean, it really holds. I mean, that one of the hardest parts about rolling a joint is getting that flip after you've kind of brought the material down into the paper, and then you're trying to kind of flip it as you roll it up, right? And if the papers aren't good, then it becomes really difficult. It's almost like trying to roll it in cardboard, like it just doesn't roll smoothly. And then you also really want to make sure that your material is ground up well. Otherwise, you could get a little stem or something that's going to stick right through that paper. But if you do get a stem that sticks right through your paper, a great thing to do is just take another paper and take a little piece of the sticky and lick it and use it as a patch.
Oh, it's a little Band-Aid for
Mm-hmm.
your joint.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great tip.
Yep. It's much better that sometimes people will double roll that when that happens, and you don't want to
That's
have
too
that
much
much.
paper.
That's too much paper. So yeah, I totally think people should grow their own. I think we also need to make sure that we are keeping our eye out for laws that may restrict people's ability to grow medicinal plants. There's a lot of interest in psychedelics and other plants. And I don't want to see the government saying, you can't grow these plants. We're going to legalize them, but you can't grow them. Because when we lose the ability to grow these plants for ourselves, we're really vulnerable to the commercialization of the plant. A lot of folks, cigarettes, right? The tobacco plant in and of itself is actually an entheogen. It's a wonderful plant. It's got a lot of medicinal qualities. Give it to a tobacco company, it becomes a cigarette. All of a sudden, we're looking at something that has a lot of negative health benefits or negative health consequences. So I think we need to protect the right to grow these plants so that we don't only have the choice of the cigarette version of ayahuasca or peyote or cannabis or any of these other plants.
Right. Now, tell me this because I was speaking with someone recently and they were looking up different laws and they saw that if someone in some states, if you have a medical cannabis card or something, you can't own a handgun or something like that, where other constitutional rights are taken away if you choose to be a cannabis consumer.
Oh, yes. And happens not just with cannabis, but this is part of drug policy under prohibition, is what we refer to as collateral sanctions, meaning punishment that has things that are not directly about the drug use, but are because you use drugs. So, for example, laws that say that people get their kids taken away if they have a drug felony, or don't get funding for college, or can't get a job, or public housing. None of those things are directly related to drug use, but they're things we use to punish people who use drugs. And so that has carried through in legalization as well. So it's like, all right, you're going to say you use cannabis, then we're going to take these rights away from you. Because we don't think when you say you're a drug user, that means you're giving up certain rights. That's the belief. And so, there's also this underlying thing about fear. And I think that specifically speaks to the gun issue, right? So you're a crazy cannabis user. You can't be trusted with a firearm because, you smoke weed and you might go crazy and shoot everybody. And, that's kind of, and then people just kind of buy into that. They're like, that sounds right. I think I've seen that in a movie. And so, it becomes this issue of like protecting the public from people who use drugs, which has been the message since the very beginning. It's just that who uses drugs was whichever minority person we were trying to scare everyone, we were trying to spell fear around.
All the more reason why people like us, people that are responsible cannabis users, need to be more vocal and coming out of the cannabis closet to completely change, the perspective on what a cannabis consumer looks like, because that is all ridiculous shit.
Oh, it's very powerful. It's very powerful. And, you can look at other movements, and I point to the LGBTQA movement a lot because there was a time when there was a very strong stereotype attached to being part of that community, even though it was a stereotype that most people in that community did not fit. I know a lot of gay people, only a couple of them wear sequins and dance on the Pride Parade float, only a handful, right? And so this idea that people coming out who didn't fit that stereotype really changed the way people felt about discrimination against people from that community. Because when it was your sister, neighbor, teacher who was gay, then you were like, well, no, they shouldn't be discriminated against. Like, we shouldn't have this hate against this group because I know people in that group and care about them. It's the same with cannabis and really with drug use in general. The more people see non-problematic substance use among people that they view as otherwise being good citizens, the more we can do to move policies forward that stop demonizing people who use these substances.
Amen.
How's your joint?
It's good. I'm very impressed with Kathy's harvest this year. She just keeps getting better and better. So this is her third year to have personal plants, and she's having a ball. She makes a ton of medicine. She makes tinctures and oils and salves and all kinds of. She works with another local friend who's an herbalist, and makes all kinds of fun stuff. And I really love seeing people in the senior community getting excited about cannabis. And so I try to do whatever I can to support her. When I have a little bit of extra time in the day, I'll run over and try to trim for a couple of hours to help them out. But they're in there getting it done. They're in the barn taking care of business.
Well, people will be surprised how much cannabis you can get from 6 plants.
Yes.
And, they're like growing, and then they look and their plants are gigantic. And then they realize they have to trim it all, which is it's kind of tedious. That's why I like the farm cut. I'm like, again, a quick and dirty trim girl. I cut off my fan leaves. I hang my plants upside down. Once they're dry, I basically just take off like the very outer longer leaves and leave everything else before the cure. And I think that's really the best way to do it. Sometimes I won't even take those other leaves off. I'll just leave them on, and I'll just kind of trim it as I go. So I'll take out a bud to smoke, and I'll kind of pick off any like extra leaves on there, and then I'll smoke it. And I don't know. That's the best.
Yes. Tell me about your curing process. How do you do it?
So I do a 2-step process. After my plants are dry, like I said, I usually take off some of like those larger, not fan leaves, but like not quite sugar leaf, like those in-between leaves. And then I put them in a brown paper bag, and I just kind of lightly fold over the top, and I'll put that in a dark space for just a couple days, just to kind of like get it a little acclimated to that space. And then I'll put it in a jar, which is where I've got them now. And then I'll burp the jar every day for like 30 seconds, just kind of get the airflow. And then, I'll just smell it. My nose really tells me when it's ready. Sometimes it's 2 weeks, sometimes it's 3 weeks. but it really gets rid of the last of that kind of green chlorophyll smell, and it just really settles into that nice bouquet. And when I can open that jar after a day of it not being open, and the first hit I get is that like amazing terpene profile with none of that kind of like fresh plant smell, then I know it's ready to go. And then you can just store it in the jars in the dark, as long as it's not too hot or too cold. Light will degrade cannabinoids, and touch, the oil residue on your finger will degrade cannabinoids, and time will degrade.
These are favorite jars of farmers.
Yeah, the UV protection jars. That's what this comes in. Yeah, the ones that protect from the UV light are great. But if you don't have that, a mason jar will do, and just anything that's going to be airtight and glass. And then some people use like the Boveda.
I was going to ask you about those.
Right. So, when you buy a piece of clothing and you have that little package in the pocket, so it absorbs the moisture so that the clothing doesn't get mold. Well, they make those for cannabis. And what they basically do is maintain a stable humidity level in your vessel. And so Boveda is a company that makes them. You can buy packages of them online. And I mean, I found that it works really well. I mean, if you're going to consume your cannabis right away, then I don't really think it's necessary. But if you have a lot, and if you grow your own, you're likely going to have a lot, and it's going to last you for months and months, it might be a good idea to get some. They're very cheap. And you can just put those in the jar with your cannabis, and it helps maintain the humidity.
So, some cannabis snobs will say that those things will, start degrading the terpenes or whatever. But I'm with you. If you have a shit ton of flower, then, I'd rather have those and have, maintain that moisture than have completely super dried out flower.
Well, dryness degrades terpenes also.
Yes.
So,
yes. And it starts turning the THC to CBN, right?
Right. And then we all go to sleep.
Yeah. Great party, Amanda.
Well, I remember when I went to University of Texas for a couple years, right out of high school.
Austin's my grown-up home.
Yeah. So I was there from 94 to 96. And when I moved out of my dorm room after my freshman year, I found so many drugs. Because I would come home from partying out night, and I would like have something in my pocket, and I would hide it like in a book, or, like behind something, and then forget about it completely. And so I found a bunch of old weed, and was like, I don't understand why this is making me so sleepy. I mean, it had been back there for like a year, and granted, it was not the best weed to begin with because it was in the 90s in Texas.
Yeah.
But I just was like, from that point on, if anyone was like, oh, I found this old weed, I'd be like, no, old weed puts me to sleep. Old weed puts me to sleep. And that was just kind of like what I found. And then I found out, 2 years ago that there was actually CBN. That's what it was.
You learned why.
Yeah, it was fascinating. It's kind of backwards with cannabis. Like, cannabis has been used for thousands of years across the world. And so we have so much human experience around the use of this plant that it's like the science isn't discovering anything new. It's really just validating what people have been saying for thousands of years. It's like for thousands of years, people have been using cannabis as a medicine. And now science is like, maybe cannabis is a medicine. Maybe we should look into that.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
But it is validating, right? I mean, it's good to know that it wasn't just some kind of collective insanity around the benefits of cannabis that we were all experiencing for thousands of years.
It's funny that you say that, because I've been using cannabinoids for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years every day, where it's a regimen of various cannabinoids, but I don't ever track it. I don't know what I'm doing with it, as far as like, do I need a little more CBG or a little more CBD? Like, I haven't done that. I just know to take it and whatever. Well, then a couple of weeks ago, well, now I guess it's been about a month ago, my neck totally locked up. I couldn't move. I was in so much pain. And I started tracking literally how I felt when I woke up, midday, afternoon, when I went to bed, just tracking all of the things. And when I finally felt better, I was able to look back and see what I was taking, how it was helping me, and like, oh, look, you finally have evidence that this shit actually works for you. And
Amazing.
So that to me is so important for people when they're trying to validate cannabis for wellness. And, they just say, I do it, it works for me. it's a lot different when you can take a journal into a doctor's office that's got, a month's worth of data where you're checking in with yourself 5 times a day.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
powerful.
It is. It is. And if folks out there are interested in doing that, there's actually a great app called Tetragram that is exactly that, except it's an app. So it lets you put in like the time of day, how you're feeling, what you're using, what percentage of TA, like what's the cannabinoid profile of what you're using, any information you know about the product. And then you're able to like go back and look at all the data and like see, oh, when I use this product, what was the effect? And, it's really helping people, take control of this thing. Because you're right. I mean, most people are just like, well, I use cannabis and I feel better. But I think we're learning much more about how to dial in and customize that profile. Of course, around the corner will probably be endocannabinoid testing, where you can find out exactly what is malfunctioning about your endocannabinoid system, and then exactly which cannabinoids you should be taking to supplement those specific deficiencies, which is going to be pretty groundbreaking when that happens.
Mhm. I'm already so excited about the endocannabinoid, testing for our genetics. I had that done a couple of years ago, but there were only a couple of data points that they could tell me about, and while I was having my terrible, locked up body pain shit, I went back online and it was like, "There's new data. Do you wanna refresh your report?" And now there's so much more data available. I mean, I learned that I metabolize CBD like an Olympic athlete, like super duper fast. And I have all of the genes for inflammation. And so it was just like one of those, oh, you need way more CBD than you take. And,
Oh, interesting.
and I have like fewer CB1 receptors, but a semi slow metabolism or medium metabolism of THC, like just pretty in depth things. And also whether or not you're somebody that would be more likely to develop mental illness or something like that, which, that's what a lot of parents get all freaked out about. Um,
Yeah.
so there's already a lot of empowering data that we can find out, but when we can get really in the weeds on each cannabinoid, that's gonna be super cool.
Yeah. Well, I think, again, I'm going to go back to home grow. When one other benefit about growing your own is that you really can tailor the product to what works for you. So if you find a plant that really works well for you, you can replicate that and you can grow that again and again and again. Whereas as a dispensary, sometimes you don't find things like I wait for Pink Boost Goddess all year, but it's outdoor. So you're only getting
Mhm.
it for a short amount of time every year, right? But like I wait for it because I love it so much. But like if I could grow that and had a little greenhouse where I could just keep that supply going all year long, like that would be fantastic. And I could really standardize my regimen rather than having to kind of have a stable of cultivars that I know work pretty well, because I definitely am not a fan of the distillate or isolate. So I'm not going to go and just do a straight THC pill. I want to have that whole plant. So, when you grow your own, you get to kind of breed things together. Like I bred Johnny. So Johnny from Huckleberry Hill, a couple years ago, he brought me a bunch of adolescent females of huckleberries. And so I grew huckleberries. And then Chia Rodriguez, who has Arcana flowers, who is an amazing farmer, she has True Barrymore, which is like one of my favorite cultivars of all time. So she brought me some seeds, or she brought me some males from True Barrymore. And then I had Johnny's females. And so I made them have plant sex. And then I was able to create Huckleberry More, which was the baby of True Barrymore and Huckleberry. And so Huckleberry More is now in its second year, and that I've got some drying or curing. And it's great. So I've got a big seed stock of Huckleberry More seeds that I made after I pollinated the plant. And so every year now I can grow Huckleberry More. And the more years I grow it, the more refined it will get. The more I can kind of breed it down to be more of a true genetic. And it really like suits me. Like I don't even know what's in it because I've never gotten it tested, but whatever it is, my endocannabinoid system really likes it. So that's another really big benefit because I'd never find that in the store because it doesn't exist except in my own home garden.
That's so fun, and I know the huckleberry strain. I don't know the other, but, next time you make a trip to Santa Rosa, you can, drop off by the studio in Asti and drop me off some of your home grow. I would love to try that.
Oh, as soon as it's ready, I will absolutely come and I'll bring you some for sure.
Well,
I only know what one of the cultivars is because the other ones are just mystery seeds that I obtained and don't know what they are. But I'll definitely bring you some huckleberry more.
right on. Yeah, you have the Mendo Blendo, with
Yes.
the rest of your flowers.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate you rolling with me, and thanks to everyone else for hanging out with us. If you haven't gotten your rolling supplies, you can go to ocbusa.com/baked and get 4 booklets of OCB rolling papers and a rolling tray for $4.99. I'm rolling my Blazy Susan around to get to my mouse so I can put this up on the screen for you. Boom, there we go. Amanda, if you would like to reach out to her, connect with her on social, she is at Personal Plants. And is it personalplants.com?
Mypersonalplants.com.
Okay, mypersonalplants.com. Well, thanks, guys, for hanging out and for rolling with us. And we will be here again with someone else in the cannabis world. I don't know. I fly by the seat of my pants on this show. Amanda, if you have a recommendation for somebody that I need to roll with, you can let me know.
I
But
will.
until next time, thank you, OCB, and in my personal plants.
Bye.